I woke before the sun, standing alone in our living room while the world outside still slept. The house was quiet, too quiet, like it was holding its breath with me. In my hands, I clutched the legal documents my husband once showed me, papers he said would protect me and our children. My fingers trembled as I traced his signature, remembering his calm voice and gentle smile. Every corner of the room carried him: the couch where he laughed, the wall where he measured the children's height, the chair where he drank tea. Grief sat heavy on my chest, making it hard to breathe. I wanted to scream, but no sound came. I felt frozen between yesterday and today, unsure how life could continue without him. Dawn light slowly crept through the curtains, touching the floor like a quiet promise. I stood there, surrounded by memories, realizing this was the first morning of a life I never asked for, a life I would have to face alone, holding papers that now meant survival, and strength had to grow inside. The day of his funeral felt unreal, like time had slowed just to punish me. I walked behind the coffin, my legs weak, my heart completely shattered. Prayers floated through the air, soft and distant, while my mind screamed his name. My children clung to my dress, their small hands tight, asking questions I could not answer. They did not understand why their father was lying so still, why he would not wake up. I watched the coffin lowered into the ground, and something inside me broke forever. Tears streamed down my face, yet my body felt numb. Relatives cried loudly, but their voices sounded hollow to me. All I could hear was the echo of my husband's laugh from better days. When the final prayer ended, silence followed, heavy and cruel. I realized then that this goodbye was permanent. I was no longer a wife, just a widow, standing in the dirt, holding my children, knowing life had taken a turn I could never undo. The sky stayed bright, but my world went completely dark. That day changed everything. After the burial, I returned home expecting comfort, but instead I felt cold emptiness. The house no longer welcomed me the way it used to. Every room felt unfamiliar, like it was judging my presence. The walls that once echoed laughter now seemed to whisper warnings. I moved slowly through the house, afraid of what I might feel next. Our bedroom hurt the most. His clothes still hung there, carrying his scent, reminding me of nights we shared dreams. I sat on the bed and cried quietly, so the children would not hear. Even the kitchen felt hostile, silent, where his voice once filled the space. I realized the warmth had left with him. This was no longer a home, just a structure filled with pain. I felt watched, as if unseen eyes were measuring my weakness. The air was heavy, pressing on my chest. I knew something bad was coming. Grief was no longer alone. Fear had moved in, and it refused to leave me. I sensed betrayal approaching, silent, patient, and waiting nearby, for the perfect moment, soon. They came a few days later, all dressed in black, pretending to mourn. My husband's family filled the house with dark clothes and colder faces. Their eyes followed me everywhere, sharp and unkind. They spoke in low voices, whispering behind my back, stopping when I entered the room. Fake sympathy dripped from their words, but I felt the hatred underneath. One of them hugged me, stiff and quick, like touching me was a burden. I offered them seats, trying to remain respectful, but my hands shook. The children stayed close to me, sensing danger they could not name. The house felt smaller with them inside, crowded with tension. I noticed how they looked at the walls, the furniture, the land outside. Not at me. Not at the children. Their grief was not for my husband. It was for what they believed he left behind. In that moment, I understood they were not here to comfort me. They were here to take something from me. Their silence screamed plans, greed, and intentions that terrified me deeply and changed everything forever afterward. The accusation came suddenly, sharp and cruel, cutting through my fragile calm. One of them pointed at me and said I was hiding important property documents. They claimed the house, the land, everything my husband built was never meant for me. My heart raced as their words sank in. I tried to explain, but they talked over me, louder and angrier. They said I was only a wife, not real family. Hearing that broke something inside me. I looked at my children and felt panic rise. Was I about to lose the roof over our heads? They demanded papers, threatening legal action, mocking my grief. I felt cornered, small, and powerless in my own home. My voice shook as I denied their lies, but they laughed, confident and sure. In that moment, I understood this was no misunderstanding. This was an attack. They were rewriting my husband's wishes, erasing his love, and turning my mourning into a battle. Fear wrapped around me tightly, but deep inside, a quiet anger began to grow. That anger would soon become my strength alone. I remember the moment the accusation landed on me like a slap. They said I was hiding property papers, that the house and land were never meant for me. My ears rang as their voices rose around me. I tried to explain, but they would not listen. They spoke with confidence, as if my husband never loved me. I felt my knees weaken while my children stood behind me, silent and scared. Every word they said erased my marriage, my years of sacrifice, my place in this family. I kept shaking my head, saying no, but it did not matter. They had already decided my guilt. Their eyes were not grieving, they were calculating. I felt exposed, stripped of dignity, accused in the home I shared with the man I loved. Fear crawled into my chest, tight and painful. In that moment, I realized my mourning had turned into a fight for survival, and nothing would ever feel safe again. That accusation marked the beginning of nights without sleep, constant anxiety, and a future filled with painful uncertainty ahead alone. I woke one morning to the sound of metal scraping. The locks had been changed without warning. Doors that once welcomed me now refused to open. Rooms were sealed, keys taken, access denied. I stood there helpless while they moved freely through the house. This was the home my husband and I built with love and struggle. Yet suddenly I was treated like a stranger. They pushed me aside when I asked questions. My voice shook, but no one answered. The walls felt closer, colder. My children watched silently as I was reduced to nothing. I felt humiliation burn my skin as they claimed authority. Each closed door felt like a slap, a reminder that grief had made me powerless. I slept that night in a corner of the house, afraid to touch anything. The place that once felt safe now felt hostile. I realized then that they were trying to erase me slowly, pushing me out piece by piece, hoping I would disappear without a fight. That morning changed my understanding of family, safety, and trust, forever, completely shattered. I heard my children crying softly in the night, trying to hide their fear. They asked me if we would be sent away, if this was no longer our home. My heart broke every time they asked. I had no answers, only worry. I pulled them close, pretending strength I did not feel. In the dark, their tears soaked my clothes. I promised them safety while my hands trembled. Fear sat with us, heavy and silent. I stayed awake, listening to every sound, afraid someone would come to take them from me. Being a mother meant lying sometimes, even when your own heart is breaking. I felt guilty for not protecting them better. Their innocence was being stolen by adult cruelty. I stared at the ceiling until morning, praying silently. That night taught me how fear sounds when it whispers through children, and how strength begins when you refuse to let them see you fall apart completely. I learned survival starts with love, even when the future feels dark, uncertain, and unbearably heavy ahead for us all. Somehow, despite everything, memories attacked me without warning. I saw my husband laughing, his eyes full of hope. I remembered his promises to protect me and the children. He spoke often about our future, about growing old together. Those moments replayed in my mind like a cruel movie. I would smile at first, then collapse in pain. Love became a weapon against my heart. I remembered his voice telling me I would never be alone. Now silence answered me instead. Each memory cut deeper than the last. I missed his reassurance, his calm strength. At night, I whispered his name, hoping he could hear me. Grief does not fade, it transforms into something sharper. I carried those memories everywhere, heavy, but precious. They reminded me of what I lost and what I had to defend. His love became my reason to keep standing, even when my heart felt completely shattered. Those memories hurt deeply, but they also fueled my courage, reminding me why surrender was never an option for my children, my dignity, and the life we built together, with love and hope. One afternoon, an uncle pulled me aside. His face was calm, his voice low. He told me to leave quietly or lose everything. There was no anger in his tone, only certainty. That scared me more than shouting. I felt a chill run through my body as he spoke. He acted like he was offering advice, but it was a threat. I looked at him and saw no mercy. He wanted me gone, erased. I nodded, pretending to understand, while fear screamed inside me. My children were playing nearby, unaware of the danger hanging over us. I realized how alone I truly was. No one was coming to save me. That warning stayed with me all day, echoing in my mind. I knew then this fight would be quiet, strategic, and dangerous. Leaving meant losing my children's future. Staying meant war. I chose to stay. Fear followed me, but determination grew stronger, pushing me toward a path I never imagined walking alone, without guidance, yet driven by love, justice, survival, and the future of my children and myself forward always. Before sunrise, I sat alone at the dining table. The house was silent again. I spread the documents my husband gave me across the table. My hands shook as I reread every word. These papers were his final protection for us. I remembered how serious he was when he handed them to me. At the time, I never imagined I would need them so soon. Fear mixed with determination as the sky slowly brightened. I took deep breaths, trying to calm my racing heart. This was no longer just about grief. It was about survival. I understood then that knowledge was my weapon. I memorized dates, names, signatures. Each line gave me a little more strength. Dawn light filled the room, warming my face. I felt my husband close in that moment, like he was guiding me. I promised myself I would honor his trust. Sitting there alone, I decided I would fight, no matter the cost. That morning marked the beginning of my transformation from grieving widow into determined defender of my family and our future. Together, forever, strong. I cried until my chest hurt. Then the tears suddenly stopped. I wiped my face slowly and stared at my reflection in the dark window. I looked tired, broken, but still standing. In that quiet moment, something inside me shifted. I realized running would only teach my children fear. Staying would teach them strength. I thought of my husband and the trust in his eyes when he spoke about our future. I took a deep breath and made a silent decision. I would not leave. I would not beg. I would not disappear. Fear was still there, but it no longer controlled me. I straightened my shoulders and felt a calm determination replace panic. I did not know how I would win, but I knew I would fight. That decision did not come with confidence or courage. It came with love and responsibility. From that moment, I stopped seeing myself as a victim. I became a mother protecting her home. That night, I slept with fear beside me, but resolve in my heart, ready to face whatever came next alone. I stood outside the lawyer's office for several seconds, my heart racing loudly. My hands held the documents tightly, like they were the only thing keeping me upright. Walking inside felt like stepping into the unknown. I was afraid of bad news, afraid of hope, afraid of being disappointed again. The room smelled of paper and old books. The lawyer looked up and asked me to sit. My voice shook as I explained everything. I felt small, but determined. Every word I spoke carried my pain and my resolve. These papers were my lifeline, my husband's final gift. I watched the lawyer read silently, page by page. Each second felt heavy. I prayed quietly, while staring at the floor. Walking into that office did not erase my fear, but it gave it direction. I realized asking for help was not weakness. It was survival. When I walked out later, nothing had changed yet, but I had taken my first real step forward for myself and my children. That moment quietly marked the beginning of my long fight ahead alone together. The lawyer finally spoke, breaking the heavy silence in the room. He explained the documents slowly, carefully, as if he understood my fragile state. Every sentence felt like light cutting through darkness. My husband had planned ahead. He legally secured the house and land for me and the children. My hands trembled as relief washed over me. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe. Ink on paper held truth, protection, and love. My husband knew this fight might come. He trusted me to finish it. Tears filled my eyes, but this time they were different. They were mixed with gratitude and strength. The lawyer pointed to signatures and dates, confirming everything was valid. No one could legally take this from us. I felt my spine straighten as hope replaced fear. Those documents were more than legal proof. They were my husband's voice speaking for me when he could not. Walking out of that office, I felt armed with truth. I was no longer guessing. I had proof. And proof changed everything. It reshaped my courage and future forever. The pressure did not stop. It grew louder and more public. My in-laws insulted me openly, calling me names, questioning my character. They spread lies, trying to shame me into leaving. Every encounter felt like an attack. They threatened me with words and looks, making sure I felt watched. Even simple trips outside became stressful. Neighbors whispered. I felt exposed and humiliated. At home, they banged doors and raised voices on purpose. Intimidation became daily routine. I learned how cruelty can hide behind family titles. My children sensed the tension and stayed quiet. Seeing their fear made my anger grow. I wanted peace, but peace was no longer possible. Each insult tested my resolve. Some days I cried alone. Other days I stood tall, refusing to react. I realized they wanted to break my spirit. Instead, they were sharpening it. Pressure became fuel. Pain became armor. I kept reminding myself why I was fighting. This was not about pride. It was about dignity, safety, and my children's future. I refused to surrender, no matter the cost or the fear ahead. That night, everything collapsed inside me. I could not hold it together anymore. I cried harder than ever before, my body shaking uncontrollably. The weight of fear, grief, and exhaustion crushed me. I felt like I was failing as a mother. I sat on the floor, unable to breathe properly. That was when my eldest child came to me. Small hands held mine tightly. With tearful eyes, my child said, "Mama, don't give up." Those words stopped my breakdown instantly. In that moment, I realized my pain was shaping their world. I wiped my tears and pulled my child close. Strength returned slowly, quietly. I understood that even broken, I was still their example. Giving up was not an option anymore. Love lifted me from the floor. That night did not end my struggle, but it changed me. I learned that hope can come from the smallest voice. My child became my anchor. From that moment on, I carried their words with me, guiding every step forward. They reminded me why I had to keep fighting for our survival, always. Strength did not arrive suddenly. It grew quietly in the background of my pain. Every night after the children slept, I spread papers across the table and studied until my eyes burned. I learned dates, laws, and meanings I never cared about before. During the day, I attended legal meetings, sitting straight, even when fear tried to bend me. I listened carefully, asked questions, and took notes like my life depended on it, because it did. Walking through the streets, I held my head higher. People still stared, but I no longer shrank. Purpose replaced confusion. Exhaustion became familiar, but giving up never crossed my mind. Each small step forward felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. I was no longer just reacting. I was preparing. Resilience became routine. Pain became discipline. I reminded myself daily that my children were watching. Every effort mattered. Every night of study was an act of love. Slowly I began to recognize the woman I was becoming. She was tired, yes, but focused. Afraid, yet unmovable. Rising strength does not roar. It whispers, "Stay standing, keep going." And I listened, obeyed, and moved forward with intention and resolve. The first time I entered the courtroom, my heart nearly failed me. The room felt cold and heavy. Shadows stretched across the walls, making everything seem serious and final. I saw my in-laws seated confidently, smirking like victory was already theirs. Their eyes mocked me. For a moment I felt small and exposed. My hands shook as I stood there, aware of every breath. Then I remembered why I was there. I straightened my back and lifted my chin. Fear did not disappear, but it stopped controlling me. I stood tall because my children needed me to. I refused to let intimidation silence me. The judge entered, and the room fell quiet. In that silence, I found my strength. I was not weak for being afraid. I was brave for showing up. This was no longer just their game. I belonged in that room as much as anyone else. Walking to my seat, I felt something solid inside me. Courage is not loud. It is calm. And in that courtroom shadow, I chose to stand in my truth. When my in-laws spoke under oath, their lies poured out smoothly. They twisted facts, painted false pictures, and tried to make me look greedy and unworthy. Listening to them hurt more than I expected. Each lie felt like another attempt to erase my marriage, my sacrifices, and my pain. They spoke confidently, rehearsed, and calculated. I clenched my fists, reminding myself to stay calm. Anger burned inside me, but I did not interrupt. I watched the judge carefully, hoping truth would be visible. Their words accused my character, questioned my love, and dismissed my grief. I wanted to scream, but I stayed silent. Silence became my strength. I knew the truth was written, not spoken. As they talked, I realized lies depend on noise. Truth waits patiently. My heart pounded, but my face remained steady. I would not stoop to their level. I let them speak, knowing every lie would soon collapse under its own weight. In that moment, I understood that endurance is power. I was no longer afraid of their words. I trusted what I carried. The truth was on my side. When it was my turn, I stood and presented the documents with shaking hands. I placed them carefully before the judge. The room grew silent, suddenly heavy with attention. No one spoke. Every eye followed the pages as they were reviewed one by one. I held my breath while the judge studied each line, each signature, each date. Time seemed to stop. The paper spoke louder than any voice. My husband's intentions were clear, written in ink that could not be denied. I watched my in-laws' confidence fade slowly. Their smirks disappeared. My chest tightened with hope and fear mixed together. The silence was powerful. It felt like justice leaning forward. I realized then that preparation mattered. Knowledge mattered. Truth mattered. Those documents were not just legal proof. They were my husband standing beside me in that room. I felt supported, protected, and validated. I did not need to speak loudly. The evidence did it for me. In that quiet courtroom, the truth finally had space to breathe. And as the judge continued reading, I knew everything was about to change. Waiting for the decision felt unbearable. The courtroom fell into deep silence. Time slowed until every second felt heavy. I held my children close, feeling their small bodies tremble against mine. My hands shook as I tried to stay calm for them. Fear crept back in, whispering doubts. What if it still was not enough? What if truth failed us? The judge's face was unreadable. Darkness filled my thoughts, memories of threats and humiliation flooding back. I closed my eyes and breathed slowly. I reminded myself that I had done everything I could. Whatever happened next would shape our future forever. The room felt cold, but my children's warmth grounded me. I realized how far we had come, from grief to survival, from fear to resistance. Even if the outcome was uncertain, my strength was real. I had stood up, I had fought. Silence stretched on, painful and endless. Then I felt a calm settle inside me. Whatever the decision, I knew I had honored my husband and protected my children. Waiting in that darkness taught me something important. Courage is not knowing you will win. It is standing firm while the world decides your fate. I heard the judge speak, and every word landed with weight and clarity. He said the property legally belonged to me and my children. For a moment, I did not breathe. My ears rang as relief rushed through my body. Tears filled my eyes, but I stayed still. I held my children tighter, feeling their fear finally loosen. The courtroom felt brighter, lighter, like a burden had lifted. The judge continued explaining, but the meaning was already clear. We were safe. We were protected. My husband's voice felt present in that ruling. His planning, his love, his trust had carried us here. I felt validated, seen, and restored. All the nights of fear, the insults, the threats suddenly lost power. Justice did not shout. It spoke calmly, firmly, and finally. I nodded slowly, thanking the judge with my eyes. This decision did not erase my pain, but it honored my truth. In that moment, I understood something deeply. Standing up for yourself can change your life. That ruling was victory true. It was the beginning of peace for my family. I watched their faces change when the ruling settled in. Shock froze them in place. Some stood up quickly and walked out, unable to hide their shame. Others stayed seated, staring at the floor, refusing to look at me. The confidence they carried into the courtroom disappeared completely. Their power vanished in silence. I felt no joy watching them fall apart. I only felt relief. I did not smile or celebrate. I focused on my children and their safety. Seeing my in-laws defeated reminded me how close I came to losing everything. They avoided my eyes because truth makes lies uncomfortable. For the first time, I was not the one shrinking. They were. I realized then that intimidation only works until truth stands firm. I gathered my papers calmly and stood up with dignity. I walked past them without speaking. I did not need words. Justice had spoken for me. That moment closed a painful chapter. I left the courtroom lighter, knowing their control over my life was finally gone. I stepped outside, breathing freely again, at last today. I returned to the house slowly, unsure how it would feel. When I opened the door, sunlight poured through the windows like a welcome. Warm light touched the walls, the floor, and my face. The house felt alive again. I walked through each room carefully, reclaiming space that once rejected me. Every step felt healing. I opened windows, letting fresh air replace fear. My children ran ahead, laughing softly, testing their freedom. I stood still and breathed deeply. This place was ours again. The silence no longer hurt, it rested peacefully. I remembered the nights I cried here, afraid and alone. Now hope lived in the same rooms. I touched the walls and whispered thanks. Home is not just a building, it is safety, memory, and belonging. That day I reclaimed more than property. I reclaimed dignity. The house did not change. I did. Walking through that door marked my return to myself. Light filled every corner, and for the first time in weeks I felt truly at home again. Peace finally replaced fear inside my heart completely that day. Healing began quietly, without announcement. Laughter slowly returned to our home, soft at first, then louder. My children played freely again, their joy filling rooms once heavy with fear. I watched them closely, memorizing every smile. Outside, I planted flowers with my hands in the soil. Each seed felt like a promise. Growth takes time, just like healing. The sun felt warmer on my skin. Neighbors greeted me kindly again. I allowed myself to breathe. Pain did not disappear, but it loosened its grip. I started sleeping better, dreaming again. Simple routines became comfort. Cooking, cleaning, and caring felt lighter. I talked to my husband in quiet moments, telling him we were okay. Planting those flowers became my symbol. Roots grow even after storms. New life follows loss. Healing is not forgetting, it is learning to live again. Watching those flowers grow reminded me that my heart could bloom too. Step by step, day by day, we were healing together, building a future shaped by strength, love, and peace for my children, my soul, and our shared tomorrow ahead always. At dawn, I stood in front of the house with my children beside me. The sun rose slowly behind us, painting the sky with hope. I felt calm, steady, and proud. This place no longer held fear, it held victory. Tears rolled down my face, but they were different now. They were tears of strength, not loss. My children held my hands, smiling at the morning light. I breathed deeply, feeling free for the first time in a long while. Everything we survived led to this moment. We were still standing, we were still together. I thought of my husband and whispered thanks. His love carried us through the storm. The house stood strong, just like us. I lifted my head and faced the day. The future was uncertain, but it was ours. That sunrise marked a new chapter, one built on courage, truth, and resilience. I knew challenges would come again, but fear no longer ruled me. At dawn, I claimed my life back. I claimed my voice, my home, and my children's future with strength and lasting peace.